Greetings and welcome to today's Crown Forum. I'm Tiffany Bussey, Executive Director of the Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, and it's my pleasure to facilitate today's Crown Forum discussion. Just a quick background on the MIEC. We like to say our mission is a simple one. We start, scale, and sustain Black businesses, whether it's with our students or with businesses in our community. We have broadly defined entrepreneurship as having an entrepreneurial mindset, someone able to identify opportunities by problem recognition, and most importantly, a solution finder, which is really what comes to mind as I got to learn more about today's speaker, a solution finder. I am so delighted to welcome our special guest, Ms. Shellye Archambeau, and tell you a little bit about Ms. Archambeau and her wonderful gift to Morehouse. Of course, most students and definitely the community here has received a copy of her book. So we'll have a discussion today, not only about the book, but also many thoughts that around her leadership and how she got to where she is today. Ms. Archambeau has over 30 years of experience in technology. She's the former CEO of MetricStream, a Silicon Valley-based governance, risk, and compliance software company. During her tenure, MetricStream grew from a fledgling startup into a global market leader. She's the author of Unapologetically Ambitions, which I'm sure many of you have received a copy. Take risks, break barriers, and create success on your own terms. A book that will inspire you. If you haven't read it, you need to really read it and provide the tools to enable you to fight the battles, make the trade-offs, and create life the way you want it. Shellye, welcome. First, on behalf of the Morehouse leadership, Dr. David Thomas, and the Morehouse community, thank you for your wonderful gift. Like I said, it has been distributed. Our faculty, our student body has received a copy of your awesome book. I am so delighted that you have joined us here today. And welcome to Morehouse.
Thank you. I've been so looking forward to this. So thanks so much, Tiffany.
All right. Well, we will dive right into it and just learn a little bit about you. Quite often when I interview entrepreneurs, I first like to really hear about their background, their story, and tell us a little bit about how do you get to where you are today? So just talk to us a little bit about that journey. Thank you.
Oh, certainly. So in order to really understand it, I got to tell you a little bit about the background. So I'm the eldest of four. My parents were crazy in that they had four children in less than 5 years. Can you even imagine?
Wow. Wow.
Right, exactly. My father didn't have a college degree. And so we moved around a lot. You know, he was always looking for the next opportunity to increase his earnings, right, and move up in his overall jobs and careers. And so before I even got to high school, we'd already lived in 7 different states. So I was always that new kid, right? The new kid at school, new kid on the block. But this was also the 60s. And in the 60s, it was a very racially turbulent time for as many people that wanted civil rights, you had just as many that didn't. And my parents always tried to find homes that they could afford in the best school districts, right, they could live in. And I found myself in elementary school in a school where I was like the only Black kid in my class, not just the class, but in my grade, and not just the grade, but I think the whole school. And people let me know, and I don't mean just the kids, adults, that they didn't really think I belonged there, didn't think I'd amount to much. And so it became really clear to me early in life that the odds were just not in my favor. So I figured if I just did what everybody else did, I probably wasn't going to get very much. And, you know, as a kid, when things happen to you, you know, you don't get picked, you don't get chosen, somebody trips you, right? You don't get something you felt you deserved. You come home and you complain, right? You say, mom, you know, it's not fair. This happened, it's not fair. And my mother would say, you're right, Shellye, it's not fair. Life's not fair. And it's like, what? I mean, as a kid, it's supposed to be fair. You get a lollipop,
yeah, right.
Right? I mean, everything is supposed to be fair. But no, over and over again, life's not fair. Life's not fair. But that doesn't mean life's impossible. What are you going to do about it? Right? So, okay. So fast forward. I'm now in high school, and I had that obligatory conversation with the guidance counselor, right? Junior year at high school. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go to college? And I was like, well, yeah, in my family, you get good grades, so you can go to college, so you can get a job. So yes, I'm going to college. What do you want to do after college? I don't know. And she said, what do you like to do? I said, oh, clubs, organizations. I'm in everything, American Field Service, National Honor Society, right? I mean, a Key Club, all those things. And I like to lead them. And she said, oh, well, clubs and business are very similar. So if you like clubs, you'll like business. And I said, oh, and I like leading clubs. So I like to lead a business. I looked up, people who led businesses were called CEOs. So I decided I'm going to be a CEO. The rightful age
And
of
you had
16.
that vision very early. That's yeah.
Yeah, what I had really was the goal. I mean, did I know what it meant to be a CEO of a company? No, right? I mean, I was naive, but a little audacious. It's like, well, okay, if it's the same, I'll go do this. But the key is it gave me something to focus on. And so I spent the rest of my career basically saying, okay, how do I improve my odds to become CEO? Go to a college, check mark, right? I joined IBM because this is the early 80s and they were the leaders in technology at the time. So I said, great, I'll go be CEO of IBM, right? Again, naive, audacious, who knows? And I spent 14 years rising through the ranks. I got to the point where nobody above me looked like me. My boss reported to Lou Gerstner, the CEO. I was running a multi-billion-dollar division over at Asia Pacific. So I was doing well, but it wasn't clear that IBM was truly going to give me the chance to compete for CEO. And that was my goal. So I made the hard decision to leave. And I worked my way ultimately to Silicon Valley, where after being the chief marketing officer and EVP of sales at 2 companies, I finally got the opportunity to be CEO of a company that became MetricStream. And I ran that company for 15 years, turning it around. It was very broken when I got there. And now it's a global market leader in its space with customers and employees all over the world. I passed that baton a couple of years back, and now I serve on public boards like Verizon and Nordstrom, Roper Technologies and Okta, and I advise companies and universities, and I coach CEOs. And I wrote the book because now I'm trying to share, hey, here's what I've learned. Because if I could do this, a little Black girl in the 60s, the odds weren't in my favor. If I can do this, you can do this. And I want to share that with people because it takes more than hard work and ambition. That's definitely one thing I've learned. It takes intention, and it takes willing to make trade-offs, and it takes surrounding yourself with people who are supportive, and it takes mentors. It takes so much. So I want to be able to share that because a lot of people don't realize all that it takes.
And that's a really good point. As I got really wrapped up in the book, right? And you make it sound so easy, by the way, too. So it's like, okay, I love this point that you said. I believe in making choices, not sacrifices. Choices I own, no one else to blame, no guilt place. Can you talk to us a bit about that? Because some may argue we were in different times at those particular times that you talk about. But ironically, we're probably dealing with the same issues right now. So just speak to us a little bit about making choices.
Yes. So making choices to me means you keep your power. Making a sacrifice to me in these terms means that you're doing something completely for someone else, right? I'm sacrificing for someone else. I'm doing this completely for somebody else. Well, when you do something completely for somebody else, that person can never be grateful enough. I've done everything, right, for you. And if you don't show me the gratitude, the appreciation, whatever, constantly, then I feel like, well, I feel bad. Well, gosh, why did I do this if you aren't grateful? And meanwhile, the other person's in a terrible position of never being able to show that they're grateful. I said, thank you. What more do you want, right? No, I think it's important that you make a choice that you make. Take all the stakeholders in mind, right? I don't mean make it in a silo, right? Think through what it means to everybody else. But at the end of the day, you make the choice. You own that choice. And now it's not a matter of other people feeling guilty. It's not a matter of you suddenly being beholden, right? Or them being beholden. You keep your power. Let me give you an example. I was in Dallas, Texas, working for Blockbuster before I got to Silicon Valley. And it became really clear that that was not the right answer. And so I needed to get to Silicon Valley, but I just moved my family. My daughter had just started her freshman year in high school rather. And I promised her that when she got to high school, if she wanted to continue, she could. So I had the conversation to say, Kath, do you want to move to Silicon Valley or do you want to stay and finish here? She goes, Mom, I really want to stay in Dallas. So I talked it over with my husband. I ended up commuting to Silicon Valley from Dallas, Texas for 3 years. Now, I could have told people, oh, I've been doing this for my daughter. I want her to be able to have this consistent education, right? I'm doing it for her. Aren't I this great mother, right? But what would that do? Think of the pressure that would put on her. Oh my gosh, just because of her, mom's living in this crappy hotel room, right? And I'm doing this, all that pressure, right? All that, she has enough pressure as a teenager. No, no, no. I did it because it was the right choice. Is the right choice for our family, for me, so I could pursue the career, for Kathleen, so she could continue, right? My husband was willing to take on the extra slack. I mean, it took everybody into consideration, but I own it. It's mine. And so I keep my power and I don't place blame and undue, a responsibility on others. Does that make sense, Tiffany?
It does. It does. And one of the things that really strikes me as you're talking about it, as a mother, I can definitely relate to those decisions that's made. But you also talked about this myth of a balance, right, in life, and more of an integration of being able to integrate these things in a work-life balance. As students in college, you can imagine there's so many competing things in terms of time and how do you spend your efforts. There's the social piece. So talk to us, and what advice might you give? And of course, you have children of your own, so they've been through this particular phase in their life. What advice might you give to the young men of Morehouse College at this particular time, given the social environment also that we're dealing with, to be prepared to deal with leaving Morehouse and entering either a career or going on to graduate school? What advice would you probably give to these students?
Yes, I actually don't like the term work-life balance. And the reason I don't like work-life balance is what is a balance? A balance is a fixed structure, right? With two weights on both sides that are even at all times. I can't believe that anyone's life is static, right? Yet a balance is static. So I'm going to live my life with the ups and downs and the curves and everything else and try to hold something in balance at all times. I have enough that I get judged on, right? I mean, why use this? No, no, no. I believe in work-life integration. And what that means is you take your personal priorities, you take your professional priorities, and you put them together. You are living one life. And then you reprioritize ruthlessly. Now, that's going to mean that probably there are some things that aren't going to get done. But you know what? That's okay. Either learn to live with that or find somebody else to do it. But do what's really important to you. Now, let me offer one other perspective, because the only way that works is if you decide for yourself what you're willing to be judged on. All right? What you're willing to be judged on. Because the world will judge you on everything. They will judge you on what school you attended, right? Good news, you went to Morehouse, but they'll judge you on how you look, how you dress, what car you drive, right? What toys you have, boats, this, right? They'll judge you on your house, your job. They'll judge you on your family, on your wife or your girlfriend, or you name, they'll judge you on everything. It's kind of how this world, we live in a very judgy world. All right. Well, if you try to live up to all of that, you're going to fail because you can't be perfect in everything. Nobody is. So therefore, choose what you're willing to be judged on, focus on that, and the rest of it, let it go. Doesn't matter. Remember that prioritization piece? It doesn't matter. And you might be saying, well, Shellye, that sounds easy, right? But how do you actually do it?
That's right.
Well, you do it, right? And what I mean, I'll give you two quick examples. So one was, one was I didn't do laundry. I was married before my husband passed for almost 35 years, and I did not do laundry for almost 35 years. All right. We divided and conquered the house. So each had responsibilities, right? He took laundry. Great. That means I didn't do it. It wasn't my job. I didn't nag about it. I didn't ask about it. It wasn't my job. And what that meant was when he actually got to the point where it was a matter of doing something wrong or something off, like my white blouse ended up a little gray, right, or whatever, I just bought a new blouse. Okay. So it was okay with however that happened. My daughter was born with thick curly hair that she had to braid. He didn't know how to braid it, but did he need to learn? Yes, I couldn't do it all the time. What that meant was she left the house when he was learning. looking pretty jacked up a few times,
Yeah.
right? Crooked parts, right? Braids uneven, right? All this stuff. But hey, when she got to school, were people thinking, where was her mother? How could they let her out of the house looking like that? Of course they did.
They did, yeah.
Right. I didn't care. They don't know me. They don't know us. They don't know what's important. What's important is he learns how to do her hair, which he did. And he became very good at it. It was fine. It didn't affect her self-esteem. She's 4. She didn't care what she looks like, right? So decide what you're willing to be judged on and then let the rest of it go so that you can use your mind share where you need to use it to achieve your priorities, not the world's priorities, your priorities.
And thank you for that. So 2 things I heard there: don't sweat the small stuff, and then secondly, it sounds like you really got a good partner that understood and was on the same page, right? And that's important too. So sometimes being clear about those objectives and being with a team, if we liken it to an organization, having the right people on the team also
Absolutely
kind of
right.
really there. I thought I alluded also that we really share this idea at Morehouse of broadly defining entrepreneurship, of being entrepreneurial and having this entrepreneurial mindset. And that really comes to mind as I was reading the book. And by the way, the book will be required reading for our new class in on entrepreneurship mindset.
Oh, good.
And the idea behind this, theory is that if we are able to look into, and I call it the marketplace, look out into the environment and see not problems, but solutions, that we can then think about ways to really create organizations around them and solving these issues in society. What might you say would be the foundation of being able to think that way, because you certainly have amplified it in your life, and advice in how to get there. You had a wonderful education, you were able to have these experiences and still be able to push through and like you said, really create this vision for yourself and be able to go after these goal setting things. As these young men matriculate at Morehouse, how might you advise them to really think entrepreneurial, with that mindset that I am going to be solving issues in society?
Yeah. You know, I look at it as just a series of questions that I ask myself. And I've done this throughout my entire life for professional as well as for personal goals. So, what's the goal? What am I trying to do? And what I'm trying to do can be I'm trying to build a company, I'm trying to achieve a role, right? I'm trying to create a nonprofit, right? There could be whatever that happens to be. First is, what is it? What is that goal? What's that aspiration that you're trying to drive to? Second, what has to be true for you to achieve it? Well, a lot of times you don't know what has to be true. When I decided I wanted to become a CEO, I didn't know what had to be true, right? I didn't know what CEOs did, where they came from, all those kinds of things. So I had to go do my research. I like to tell people homework doesn't stop in college. I do homework to this day. Homework is just doing the research to be prepared. So who are the CEOs? What kind of backgrounds do they have? What kind of roles, right, did they have? All of those things, that's what I did. And frankly, that then affects, if once you understand what has to be true, then you ask yourself, how do I make it true for me? How do I make it true for me? And that becomes the plan. So for instance, when I decided I wanted to be CEO and I was joining IBM, every single CEO at IBM, after doing the research, started out in sales. In sales.
Mm-hmm.
Now, coming out of Wharton, taking a sales job was not normal. Most people went off to be investment bankers or
Yes,
product
the financial
managers.
side. Yes.
Exactly,
Yes.
right? The whole thing. And I'm telling my friends, yeah, I'm joining IBM. I'm going to go sell computers. And they're like, what? Are you crazy? But that was the path to power, right? So that's why I did it. Not because I love sales, but because that was obviously a skill and experience that I needed.
Mhm.
So what I tell people is ask yourself, what is it you're trying to do? Go do the research. And by the way, today it is so much easier. I mean, with
Google
LinkedIn, oh,
it.
LinkedIn, Google, I mean, you can find out anything. All right. So you
Yeah.
look at how people did it. What did they do? Blah, 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 blah. And then use that to build your plan. And the key with the plan is not just the steps, but the timelines so that you keep yourself accountable. Because the last thing you want to do is to wake up and you're 32, 39, 41, and you're like, gosh, no, I'm just not where I thought I would be.
Mhm.
And that happens to a lot of people, not because they aren't working hard and not because they're not smart, but it happens because time has a way of slipping by. We get comfortable, right?
Mhm.
And we stop paying attention to the fact that time is slipping by. So by creating a plan with a timeline, you hold yourself accountable to say, oh, wait, I'm supposed to have this role or this job by this point. And am I ready? Right? Have I actually that? So it keeps you moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm also curious to find out what role did mentors have? Because we often think of folks making these things happen, but it's the social capital, the folks we have around us that really helps. It takes a village, right, to make these things. Can you share with us how you went about, mentors in your life, and how do you go about, or how would you advise someone in college to seeking out those mentors?
Absolutely. So first of all, mentors have played a huge role in my life. And let me just share a quick story, Tiffany, if you don't mind, about
Sure.
how I came to my approach. I was at IBM. I was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years in, and IBM decided they wanted their high potential people to have mentors, but they did it a little differently. They came to us and asked us, who would we like our mentors to be? And I said, oh, okay. I thought about it. I picked a man. He was a couple levels above me. His name was Roland Harris. I knew him. I thought he liked me. And so I said, okay, Roland Harris, wrote his name down. Fine. Several days later, I got a call. Shellye. Hey, Roland. Shellye, you put my name down to be your mentor. And I was like, well, yeah, Roland, I thought you liked me. And he says, Shellye, you've got me. Go get somebody else.
Uh,
And I was like, what? So I learned two important points that I then leveraged for the rest of my life. One, I have mentors I don't even realize I have. I had no idea that Roland thought of himself as a mentor because at the time I thought it had to be a formal relationship. Two, I can have as many as I want.
mhm.
He said, go get another one. So I spent the rest of my career adopting mentors all over the place.
Mhm.
Now, when I say adopting, I mean adopting because I learned early, don't ask people. When you ask them, you say, oh, Tiffany, can you be my mentor? What happens is people's eyes get big. They kind of start leaning back and you can see they're trying to figure out, how do I get out of this, right? Not because they don't like you or not because they don't think you have potential, but because they're busy. And
Yeah.
what they see is time
Yeah.
commitment,
It's
right?
more work. Yes.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
So I didn't ask people. I just start treating people like mentors. And I tell you in the book exactly how to adopt mentors. It works. I've never counted. I've had at least 100. I mean, I've had a ton of mentors throughout my life. Because here's the key about mentors. It's not like you need to find a mentor that's going to be your mentor for the rest of your career. That person does not exist. Think of it as mentors for times in your life and times in your career. Now, most people think of mentors as the person to help them think through, what's my next step? How do I get to the next role? And that's fine. But I have found my most powerful mentors are the ones that help me do the job I currently have.
Mhm.
Because here's the secret that most people don't take advantage of. It's rare you take on a role or a job that nobody else has done before, right? 99.5%
Yeah.
of the time, somebody else will have done that job. Go find them.
Mhm.
Talk to them, learn from them so you can start on like first or second base instead of home plate,
Mhm.
right? That's how this works. So when you think about mentors, they are all around you. It is not like, oh, I have to have a mentor who's a CEO. No, mentors can be professors while you are at Morehouse.
Mhm.
Build relationships. You have amazing people at Morehouse in all kinds of roles that have done amazing things, have great connections. People are much more than just the course they teach.
Mhm.
Take a minute to find out what else they do. Most professors do other things. They might consult, they might write, they might be on boards, they might be, you never know. All right. Build relationships because a mentorship is a relationship,
Yes.
right? It's not how many contacts I have in my phone.
Yeah.
To me, a true mentor is someone that you can call upon that will do something for you, take time to give you advice, but it's not convenient. They're not going to do that. if they don't feel a relationship with you. So you have to build that relationship.
I would also say too, and that is so on point, that it's two ways, right? So I do have some students that would come and, oh, can you mentor me? But I'm also learning from them, because I do find them very interesting. And like you said, so we're so complex. We're never in one dimension in terms of what we do. And there's so many opportunities to learn. I do have one, and I often joke with her that she's my mentor. And she said, and you're my mentor. I said, no, you mentor me. And she said, no. And so it is often that give and take, and that everyone kind of really learns from each other. And I think that's what really grows and make that relationship so wonderful. So I know it's not always been a bed of roses, and this. So talk to us about a challenge that perhaps you work through. And quite often when I ask entrepreneurs about failures, they go, "Oh, we don't have failures. We have opportunities, learning opportunities, or things like that." So I don't know how you term it, challenges, failures, but talk to us of the time that things did not work out the way you wanted them to, and how did you go about coping with that rejection or no from that opportunity?
Sure. I'm going to share two. I'll share one early in career that I think students can really identify with. I was at IBM. I told you I started out in sales, and I had sold this big deal, point of sales systems and terminals to the Rite Aid Corporation, and the drugstores. And because they had thousands of drugstores, this was like 30 million. I mean, this is a huge deal over the course of like 5 years. So not only was I going to blow out my sales number, but this was going to be the number that made the branch, the region. I mean, executives from corporate came in to meet with my customer, right? This was big, high profile. I'm like a star, until I wasn't. The CEO calls me in, I'm writing in about, maybe 6 weeks or so before the equipment's going to start shipping, and says, "Shellye, we've decided that since we're going to be spending so much money in point of sale, that we're just going to invest in a point of sale company." What? They don't need any IBM gear anymore. Oh my gosh. Not only am I going to miss my number, but I have to go back and tell my boss and his boss and his boss that nobody's going to make their numbers, because this is not happening. Oh, I go into the office, I share the news. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, what else can be done? What did we do wrong?" I do all these loss reviews. But I run into people, they're like, "Oh, Shellye," it's almost like somebody died, "We heard." Oh, it's awful. So I come home from work, 3 days later or something else has happened. And my husband says, "So how was your day?" And I'm like, "Well, how do you think it was? I mean, oh my God, I'm still dealing with this Rite Aid stuff, blah, 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 all down." And he looks at me and says, "Shellye, the mourning period is over." He says, "You are the same person you were 4 days ago before you got this news."
Wow.
And I was like, he's right. He's right. Because here's the key. When you have a failure, which you're going to have, a failure only defines you as a failure if you don't move forward and if you don't learn from it. So as long as you learn and move forward, yes, you had a failure, but you are not a failure. And that is the mantra, if you will, that I've used all the way through. And one of the things that I used to tell my teams all the time, especially when you're doing things entrepreneurial, and we were talking about entrepreneurial, Tiffany, if you're actually not failing a time or two, then you are not pushing enough. You are not pushing enough. Now, you should not be failing in the same way, right? Multiple times, should be different types of failures. But if you aren't failing, then you are actually not pushing enough. So to me, failure is a sign of your willingness to innovate, to try new things. Because by definition, you don't know if they're going to work.
Yes, that's right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Like we said, fail fast, right? You want
That's
to really
right.
fail fast. I have, before we wrap up, I'm very curious. So you've been in all these technology firms, and as I was reading your bio and your background, I'm like, I don't see where Shellye coded. And typically when we look at technology, everybody's like, oh, you got to learn how to code. You got to learn. So talk to me a little bit about that, because as we work with our students, they have these fantastic ideas for business. And we often say, of course, if you're not thinking about layering technology to scale that business, perhaps it's going to be very, very small. We are into everybody wants the next unicorn, business. So how did you get yourself into technology with, and maybe I missed it, without that deep technology background?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So no, I don't have a computer science background. I don't have an engineering background. But I did take a couple classes, and I'm going to date myself big time. COBOL, which
COBOL, yeah, C++.
Nobody uses, right? I mean, so I did take a couple of courses so that I just understood the concept, right, around programming. But no, I don't have a deep technical background. But here's the key. That was a long time ago. All right, hate to date myself, but it was. You do not have to have a technical background to build a good career in technology. But you do have to at least understand the concepts so that you can lead people who do have that technical background. So you don't have to have that engineering degree, but if you do, right, it can actually be more helpful to you, because remember, you're always competing. When I say always competing, not just for the job, but if you're building companies or organizations, you're competing for talent. And people want to work for people that they respect and they feel they can learn from. So if you come into it and say, hey, I want to build an AI company, and you know not an iota, right, around coding or how AI works, it's going to be really hard to attract like the best AI person in the world to come work for you. So that's where if you will, that trade-off comes in. So does everybody have to have a technology degree or STEM degree? The answer is no, everybody doesn't have to. But again, remember, it's all about how do I improve my odds to be successful? So look at what you're trying to do and then figure out what can you do to improve your odds to be successful. And depending on what you want to do, sometimes that means, you want to have you want to have an underpinning of tech, right? To be able to do better. It doesn't mean you have to, but it might make it easier.
Thank you for that, because we get so much of that, and the concept also of complementing teams, right? We started off this conversation about that also. So know where your strengths and weaknesses lie, and be able to surround yourself in that team. So I might not have a deep tech, but the person I bring onto my team most certainly needs to. And I think in that exchange and balance, we will learn from each other to understand the language of deep tech and how to communicate. So I really, really like that idea.
Yeah, it is so true, Tiffany. One of the things I like to say is nobody does anything of significance all by themselves. Nobody. And if they tell you they did, they're lying. Nobody does. So it really is all about the team. And the key is attracting the best team possible.
Yes. So as we wrap up, this has been so engaging. I could go on and on and talk to you. I wonder, what else would you like to tell our students at Morehouse as they listen in on this Crunk Forum class, and any messaging specifically for these young people living in what I consider one of the most dynamic times, because there's so much unknown given all the things that we're going through. But I'm also so hopeful, because I think that so much new things are going to happen, and especially for these students that are now matriculating and getting ready to make some significant changes in the world.
Yes. So there's a couple things I'd like to say. One, the opportunity is immense. The opportunity is immense, right? And so you have every right to be able to go after whatever it is that you want to do. Here are my two key messages in that context. One, don't let others define you. All right? My mother used to say, don't let them win. And what she meant by that was, you can't control what people say to you. You can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond. So don't let them win. And they win when they control or impact how you feel about yourself. They don't know you. They have no right to judge you. And since they don't, you're like Teflon. Right off, baby. Right off. Do not let the microaggressions and sometimes macro that will help impact you. Teflon, baby. They don't know you. They don't know you. They have no right to judge you. All right. So do not let them win. Number 2, you own your career. Not your boss, not your company. You do. You would never spend thousands of dollars on an airline ticket. Pack your bags, put the dog in the kennel, hold your mail, let your friends know, hey, I'm going to be gone for a while, right? Get to the airport, check in, get on the plane, plug in that seatbelt, and then look at the pilot and say, so, where are we going anyway? Right? You would never do that. But so many people do that with their careers. They go and interview and they get that job, and then they work hard and put their heads down and wait. No, they wait for somebody to tap them on the shoulder. Oh, you can go do this now. Tap, tap. Oh, you can go do that now. No, it's your career. It's not your boss's. It's not your manager's. It's yours. So you decide, what is it you want to do? You figure out a plan to go get the skills, the experience needed to go be able to get that done. Work with others, right? To move forward. But you need to be proactive and intentional about managing your career. Don't just sit there and wait for somebody else to do it for you.
What a wonderful note to end on. Oh my goodness. Don't sit there and wait for someone else to do it for you. Shellye, I have enjoyed this so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. Thank you so much for the gift of the book. Certainly will continue. And like I said, we may even have you come to the class one semester when you're in Atlanta. We are here. You're a family member now, so please do come join us. Let us know. And so thank you for giving of your time, and we certainly appreciate it. And best of luck to you and your family. Continue to be safe. We're still in this pandemic.
Well, thank you very much, Tiffany. I'm so pleased that you had me. Best wishes to all the Morehouse men. I'm counting on you because you are the future.
You